Past continuous tense. Usage.
Today we're going to talk about the past continuous tense. Now, if the past simple is the tense we use for completed actions in the past, the past continuous is different. It's the tense we use when we want to show that something was already happening at a certain moment in the past. The action was in progress. It was continuing. Think of it this way. The past simple tells you what happened. The past continuous tells you what was going on. Let's go through the main uses one by one. 1. An action in progress at a specific time in the past. The first use is for actions that were already happening at a certain moment in the past. For example, at 8 o'clock last night, my family was eating dinner. We are not saying they started eating at 8 o'clock. We are saying that at 8 o'clock, the action of eating was already in progress. They were in the middle of it. Next. I was studying when the power went out. Here we have two things happening. I was studying, and then the power went out. The studying was already in progress when something else happened. That's the past continuous. And we were waiting for the bus when it started to rain. Again, waiting was already happening. Then something else occurred, it started to rain. So the key idea is, the action was already in progress when another event happened or when a specific time occurred. 2. Setting the scene in a story. The second use is very similar. We use the past continuous to describe the background of a story, to paint a picture of what was happening before the main events begin. For example, the wind was blowing gently, and people were walking along the beach. Suddenly, a large wave appeared. The first two actions, the wind blowing and people walking, are background. They create the atmosphere. Past continuous. Then something happens. A large wave appeared. That's the main event. Past simple. Next. Children were playing outside, and music was coming from a nearby house. Then a police car arrived. Again, the background is described in the past continuous. Playing, coming. Then the main event arrives in the past simple. Arrived. So the key idea is, use the past continuous to describe the situation or atmosphere before the main action happens. 3. Temporary or repeated habits in the past. Now here's a use that surprises some students. We can also use the past continuous for habits or repeated actions that happened regularly during a past period but no longer happen now. You'll often see words like always, constantly, and forever in these sentences. For example, my brother was always borrowing my pens. This doesn't mean he was borrowing a pen at one specific moment. It means he did this repeatedly, over and over, during a certain period. And the tone here often carries a feeling of mild irritation or emotion. They were constantly changing their plans. Again, this happened again and again. It was a pattern. She was forever forgetting her keys. Same idea. A repeated habit in the past that is no longer happening. So the key idea is, these repeated actions were common during a past period, but the habit has already ended. 4. Emphasizing a long activity. We can also use the past continuous when we want to stress that something continued for a long time. The focus is on how long it lasted. For example, I was practicing the piano for hours. We are not just saying I practiced the piano. We are emphasizing that the activity went on and on for a long period. They were talking all afternoon. Not just that they talked, but that it continued the entire afternoon. He was cleaning his room all morning. Again, the emphasis is on the duration. So the key idea is, the focus is on how long the activity continued, not on when it started or finished. Important note, stative verbs. Now before we go to the review, there's something very important I want to point out. Not all verbs can be used in the past continuous. Some verbs describe states, not actions. These are called stative verbs, and we generally do not use them in any continuous tense. Common examples are know, like, love, want, believe, understand, and remember. So instead of saying, I was knowing the answer, we say, I knew the answer. Instead of, she was liking the movie, we say, she liked the movie. Instead of, we were understanding the lesson, we say, we understood the lesson. The past continuous is for actions and activities that were in progress. If the verb describes a feeling, a state, or a thought, use the past simple instead. The key idea is: use the past continuous for actions in progress, not for states or feelings expressed with stative verbs. Quick review. Alright, before we finish, let's do a quick review. We've covered the main uses of the past continuous today. The first use is for an action in progress at a specific time. An action was happening at a certain moment in the past. For example, at 7 p.m., I was doing my homework. The second use is for an action interrupted by another event. An action was already happening when another event occurred. For example, we were having lunch when the phone rang. The third use is for setting the background of a story. It describes the scene before the main events. For example, people were sitting in the park when the accident happened. The fourth use is for temporary or repeated past habits. A repeated habit existed during a past period and later stopped. For example, he was always losing his wallet. The fifth use is for emphasizing duration. It highlights that an activity continued for a long time. For example, she was working all evening. And finally, remember that stative verbs are usually not used in continuous tenses. For example, I knew the answer. Lesson summary. Alright, let's finish with the big picture. The past continuous is the tense you use when you want to show that something was in progress in the past. Sometimes that's an action happening at a specific moment. Sometimes it's the background of a story, the atmosphere, the scene. Sometimes it's a repeated habit from a past period that has since ended. And sometimes it's simply to emphasize how long something continued. In all of these cases, the past continuous helps make the past feel more vivid and more real. It doesn't just tell you what happened. It shows you what was going on.
Structure.
Now let's move on and look at how we actually build the past continuous tense in English. Before we go into the structure, I want you to notice something. This tense only has one column. Unlike the simple past, where we had to separate the verb be from other verbs, the past continuous uses was, or, were every single time, no matter what the main verb is. So in that sense, the structure is actually more consistent and easier to follow. Let's start with the positive sentence. The structure is subject, then was, or were, and then the main verb with ing at the end. That ing form is very important because it is what gives this tense the feeling of something that was in the middle of happening. For example, I was sleeping. They were playing outside. You can almost picture the action already in progress at some point in the past. Now for the negative sentence, the change is small. We simply add not right after was or were, and we keep the ing verb exactly as it is. So we get was not or were not, followed by the verb with ing. For example, she was not listening. We were not expecting that. The feeling of an ongoing action is still there, but we are saying it was not happening. When we move to yes or no questions, we do the same thing we always do with be verbs. We move was or were to the front, before the subject, and then keep the ing verb after the subject. So the order becomes, was, or were, then the subject, then the verb with ing. For example, was he telling the truth? Were they waiting for us? Notice how the ing never changes its position. It always stays at the end, right after the subject. And for WH questions, we simply place a question word at the very front. Words like what, where, why, when, how. Then we follow the exact same question order, the question word, then was, or were, then the subject, then the ing verb. For example, what were you doing at that time? Why was she crying? Where were they going? So if you look at all four forms together, you will see that the core of this tense never really changes. Was, or, were is always there, and the main verb always ends in ing. The only thing that shifts is the order of the words and whether we add not. That is actually a good way to remember this tense. Hold on to two things, was, or, were, and ing. Everything else is just arrangement. If you keep that in mind, building sentences in the past continuous will start to feel very natural. Now let's put this structure into practice and go through each subject together. This is the past continuous, and I want you to pay attention not just to the grammar, but to the meaning behind it. When we use this form, we are focusing on an action that was in progress at a specific point in the past. We are picturing ourselves standing at that moment in the past, looking at an action that was happening right then. Let's go through each subject step by step. I will read every sentence and explain the meaning as we go. Let's start with I. When I say I was studying English last night, I am telling you that last night, at that point in time, I was in the middle of studying English. The focus is on the action being in progress at that moment. When I say I was not studying English last night, or I wasn't studying English last night, I am denying that this action was in progress at that time. Was I studying English last night? Now I am checking whether this action was really happening at that moment. What was I studying last night? Here I am not asking whether I was studying or not. I want to know what exactly I was studying. Now let's look at you. You were watching TV after dinner means that after dinner, at that point in time, you were in the middle of watching TV. You were not watching TV after dinner, or you weren't watching TV after dinner, denies that this action was happening at that time. Were you watching TV after dinner? I am checking whether you were really watching TV at that moment. What were you watching after dinner? Here I want to know exactly what you were watching. Now with he. He was running in the park yesterday afternoon means that yesterday afternoon, at that point in time, he was in the middle of running in the park. He was not running in the park yesterday afternoon, or he wasn't running in the park yesterday afternoon, denies that this action was happening at that time. Was he running in the park yesterday afternoon? I am checking whether he was really running at that moment. Where was he running yesterday afternoon? Here I am not asking whether he was running or not. I want to know exactly where he was running. Now let's talk about she. She was talking to her friend this morning means that this morning, at that point in time, she was in the middle of talking to her friend. She was not talking to her friend this morning, or she wasn't talking to her friend this morning, denies that this action was happening at that time. Was she talking to her friend this morning? I am checking whether she was really talking to her friend at that moment. Who was she talking to this morning? Here I want to know exactly who she was talking to. Now with it. It was sleeping under the table an hour ago means that an hour ago, at that point in time, it was in the middle of sleeping under the table. It was not sleeping under the table an hour ago, or it wasn't sleeping under the table an hour ago, denies that this action was happening at that time. Was it sleeping under the table an hour ago? I am checking whether it was really sleeping there at that moment. Where was it sleeping an hour ago? Here I want to know exactly where it was sleeping. Now let's look at we. We were preparing for the test yesterday evening means that yesterday evening, at that point in time, we were in the middle of preparing for the test. We were not preparing for the test yesterday evening, or we weren't preparing for the test yesterday evening, denies that this action was happening at that time. Were we preparing for the test yesterday evening? I am checking whether we were really preparing at that moment. What were we preparing for yesterday evening? Here I want to know exactly what we were preparing for. Finally, they were playing basketball after school means that after school, at that point in time, they were in the middle of playing basketball. They were not playing basketball after school, or they weren't playing basketball after school, denies that this action was happening at that time. Were they playing basketball after school? I am checking whether they were really playing basketball at that moment. Where were they playing basketball after school? Here I want to know exactly where they were playing basketball. Alright, let's step back and connect everything. With the past continuous, we are not just saying that something happened in the past. We are standing at a specific moment in the past and describing an action that was already in progress, already happening, right at that moment. We are always thinking about the scene, the action unfolding around that particular point in time. So remember this simple idea. The action was not a finished, single event in our mind. It was in the middle of happening, surrounding that moment in the past.
Points to note.
Today we're going to learn how to form ing verbs. We use ing forms in many tenses, such as the present continuous, past continuous, future continuous, and all the perfect continuous tenses. Many students think we can always just add ing, but that's not always true. Some verbs need spelling changes before adding ing. Let's learn the 5 main rules. Rule 1: most verbs simply add ing. This is the most common rule. For most verbs, just add ing to the base verb. Examples: eat eating, go going, read reading, open opening, visit visiting. Examples in sentences: she is eating lunch, he is going home, they are reading a book. So the first rule is very simple. Most verbs add ing. Rule 2: verbs ending in e. Many verbs end in a silent e. Before adding ing, drop the final e. Examples: dance dancing, ride riding, write writing, make making, use using. Examples in sentences: she is dancing now, he is riding a bike, I am writing an email. Notice that the final e disappears. A simple rule to remember is: drop the e, then add ing. Rule 3: verbs ending in ie. This rule is easy because there are only a few common verbs like this. When a verb ends in ie, change ie to y, then add ing. Examples: die dying, lie lying, tie tying, untie untying, vie vying. Examples in sentences: the plant is dying, the dog is lying on the floor, she is tying her shoes. Remember, change ie to y and add ing. Rule 4: double the final consonant. Some short verbs need us to double the last consonant before adding ing. This usually happens when the verb has a CVC pattern, consonant-vowel-consonant, or the final syllable is stressed. Examples: cut cutting, run running, stop stopping, begin beginning, forget forgetting. Examples in sentences: he is running fast, she is stopping the car, they are beginning the lesson. Why do we double the consonant? It helps keep the original pronunciation of the word. A simple rule is: double the final consonant and add ing. Important exception: w, x, and y. Even if a word looks like it might follow the doubling rule, we do not double w, x, or y. Examples: snow snowing, fix fixing, play playing. This is a very important exception to remember. Rule 5, verbs ending in c. When a verb ends in c, add k before ing. Examples: panic panicking, picnic picnicking, mimic mimicking, frolic frolicking, shellac shellacking. Examples in sentences: she is panicking before the test. They are picnicking in the park. The child is mimicking his father. Remember, add k before ing. Let's review. When making an ing form: 1. Most verbs simply add ing. Eat eating. Read reading. 2. If a verb ends in e, drop the e before adding ing. Dance dancing. Write writing. 3. If a verb ends in ie, change ie to y before adding ing. Die dying. Lie lying. 4. If a verb has a CVC pattern or a stressed final syllable, double the final consonant before adding ing. Run running. Stop stopping. 5. If a verb ends in c, add k before adding ing. Panic panicking. Picnic picnicking. Note, do not double w, x, or y. Snow snowing. Fix fixing. Play playing. Remember this key sentence. Before adding ing, always look at the ending of the verb. Sometimes you simply add ing, but sometimes you need to drop a letter, change a letter, or double a consonant first.
100 sentences. At 8 o'clock last night, my family was eating dinner.
This describes an action in progress. It means at 8 o'clock, my family was already in the middle of eating.
I was studying when the power went out.
This describes an interrupted action. It means I was already studying when the electricity suddenly stopped.
We were waiting for the bus when it started to rain.
This describes an interrupted action. It means we were already waiting when the rain suddenly began.
At 7 p.m., I was doing my homework.
This describes an action in progress. It means at 7 p.m., I was already in the middle of doing homework.
We were having lunch when the phone rang.
This describes an interrupted action. It means we were already eating lunch when the phone suddenly rang.
She was driving when she saw the accident.
This describes an interrupted action. It means she was already driving when she suddenly noticed the accident.
He was sleeping when the earthquake happened.
This describes an interrupted action. It means he was already asleep when the earthquake suddenly occurred.
They were watching TV when the doorbell rang.
This describes an interrupted action. It means they were already watching TV when the doorbell suddenly rang.
I was cooking dinner when my phone died.
This describes an interrupted action. It means I was already cooking when my phone suddenly lost battery.
At noon yesterday, the workers were having a meeting.
This describes an action in progress. It means at noon, the workers were already in the middle of a meeting.
She wasn't paying attention when the teacher asked the question.
This describes an interrupted action in negative form. It means she wasn't focused when the question was suddenly asked.
We weren't talking when the boss walked in.
This describes an interrupted action in negative form. It means we weren't speaking right when the boss entered.
He wasn't looking when the ball hit the window.
This describes an interrupted action in negative form. It means he wasn't watching when the ball suddenly hit the window.
They weren't listening when the announcement was made.
This describes an interrupted action in negative form. It means they weren't paying attention during the announcement.
Were you sleeping when I called you?
This is a question about an interrupted action. We want to know if you were already asleep when the call came.
Was she cooking when the smoke alarm went off?
This is a question about an interrupted action. We want to know if she was already cooking when the alarm sounded.
Were they playing outside when it started to thunder?
This is a question about an interrupted action. We want to know if they were already outside when the thunder began.
What were you doing when the fire alarm rang?
This asks about an action in progress. We want to know what you were doing at that interrupted moment.
Where was she going when you saw her?
This asks about an action in progress. We want to know her destination at that specific moment.
Why was he running when the bus arrived?
This asks for a reason behind an action in progress. We want to know why he was already running at that moment.
What was happening when the lights went out?
This asks about an action in progress. We want to know what was already going on when the power failed.
At midnight, I was still working on my report.
This describes an action in progress. It means at midnight, I was already in the middle of writing my report.
The wind was blowing gently, and people were walking along the beach.
This describes the background of a story. It means these things were already happening before the main event.
Children were playing outside, and music was coming from a nearby house.
This describes the background of a story. It means these things created the atmosphere before something happened.
The sun was setting, and the sky was turning orange.
This describes the background of a story. It means the scenery was changing slowly as the evening began.
People were chatting quietly in the cafe.
This describes the background of a story. It means this quiet activity was already happening, setting the scene.
The waves were crashing against the rocks.
This describes the background of a story. It means this scene was already in progress, creating the atmosphere.
Leaves were falling slowly from the trees.
This describes the background of a story. It means this scene was already happening as autumn arrived.
The streets were full of people, and vendors were selling food everywhere.
This describes the background of a story. It means this lively scene was already happening before anything specific occurred.
Birds were singing, and the morning air felt fresh.
This describes the background of a story. It means this peaceful scene was already in progress.
Lanterns were glowing softly along the path.
This describes the background of a story. It means this scene set the mood before the main event occurred.
Snow was falling gently outside the window.
This describes the background of a story. It means the snow was already falling, setting the wintry scene.
The crowd wasn't moving when the announcement started.
This describes the background of a story in negative form. It means the crowd remained still during the announcement.
Nobody was talking when the speaker walked onto the stage.
This describes the background of a story in negative form. It means the room was silent when the speaker appeared.
The shops weren't open yet when we arrived downtown.
This describes the background of a story in negative form. It means the shops were still closed at that point.
Was the wind blowing hard before the storm arrived?
This is a question about the background of a story. We want to know about conditions before the storm came.
Were the children playing quietly before the dog started barking?
This is a question about the background of a story. We want to know what was happening before the interruption.
What was the weather like when you left the house?
This asks about the background of a story. We want to know the scene at that moment in time.
What were people doing when the parade began?
This asks about the background of a story. We want to know the scene right before the main event started.
Suddenly, a large wave appeared while people were walking along the beach.
This describes a main event interrupting a background scene. It means the wave appeared while the walking was already happening.
Then a police car arrived while children were playing outside.
This describes a main event interrupting a background scene. It means the police car arrived while the playing was already happening.
The market was busy, and merchants were calling out their prices.
This describes the background of a story. It means this lively scene was already happening before the main event began.
My brother was always borrowing my pens.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means he did this again and again during a certain period, and it often felt annoying.
They were constantly changing their plans.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means this happened over and over, showing a pattern of behavior.
She was forever forgetting her keys.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means this happened repeatedly during a past period and has since stopped.
He was always losing his wallet.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means he lost his wallet again and again during that period.
My roommate was constantly leaving dishes in the sink.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means this happened repeatedly and was a source of frustration.
She was always complaining about the weather.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means she did this over and over during a certain period.
The kids were constantly asking for snacks.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means they did this again and again, showing a clear pattern.
He was forever showing up late to meetings.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means he repeatedly arrived late during that period.
My grandmother was always telling the same stories.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means she repeated this behavior often during a certain time.
They weren't always arguing like that before.
This describes a repeated past habit in negative form. It means this pattern of arguing did not exist earlier on.
He wasn't constantly checking his phone back then.
This describes a repeated past habit in negative form. It means this habit did not exist during that earlier period.
Was your brother always borrowing your things?
This is a question about a repeated past habit. We want to know if this pattern happened often.
Were they constantly changing the schedule last year?
This is a question about a repeated past habit. We want to know if this happened again and again.
Why was she always forgetting her keys?
This asks for a reason behind a repeated past habit. We want to know why this pattern kept happening.
What was he constantly complaining about?
This asks about a repeated past habit. We want to know the topic of his frequent complaints.
My coworker was always interrupting meetings with questions.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means this happened often and became a noticeable pattern.
The neighbors were constantly playing loud music at night.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means this happened repeatedly during a certain period.
She was always changing her mind about dinner plans.
This describes a repeated past habit. It means she did this over and over, showing an irritating pattern.
I was practicing the piano for hours.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the piano practice continued for a long stretch of time.
They were talking all afternoon.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the conversation continued throughout the whole afternoon.
He was cleaning his room all morning.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the cleaning continued throughout the whole morning.
She was working all evening.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the work continued throughout the whole evening.
We were driving for 6 hours straight.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the driving continued without stopping for 6 hours.
I was reading that book for the whole flight.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the reading continued throughout the entire flight.
They were painting the fence all weekend.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the painting continued throughout the entire weekend.
He was studying for the exam all week.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the studying continued throughout the whole week.
She was waiting in line for over an hour.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the waiting continued for more than an hour.
We were hiking for the entire day.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the hiking continued for the whole day.
I wasn't working all weekend, I finished early.
This emphasizes duration in negative form. It means the work did not continue for the entire weekend.
She wasn't studying all night, she went to bed early.
This emphasizes duration in negative form. It means the studying did not continue through the whole night.
Were you practicing the violin for hours yesterday?
This is a question emphasizing duration. We want to know if the practice continued for a long time.
Was he cleaning the garage all day?
This is a question emphasizing duration. We want to know if the cleaning continued the whole day.
How long were they talking on the phone?
This asks about duration. We want to know exactly how long the phone call continued.
How long was she waiting at the airport?
This asks about duration. We want to know exactly how long the waiting continued.
My parents were renovating the house for months.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the renovation continued for several months.
The team was preparing for the competition for weeks.
This emphasizes how long an activity lasted. It means the preparation continued for several weeks.
I knew the answer, not I was knowing the answer.
This describes a state rather than an action. It means knowing is a stative verb, so we use the past simple instead of the continuous form.
She liked the movie, not she was liking the movie.
This describes a state rather than an action. It means liking is a stative verb, so we use the past simple instead of the continuous form.
We understood the lesson, not we were understanding the lesson.
This describes a state rather than an action. It means understanding is a stative verb, so we use the past simple instead of the continuous form.
He believed her story.
This describes a state. It means believing is a stative verb, so it takes the past simple form rather than the continuous form.
I wanted a cup of coffee that morning.
This describes a state. It means wanting is a stative verb, so it takes the past simple form rather than the continuous form.
She remembered his name immediately.
This describes a state. It means remembering is a stative verb, so it takes the past simple form rather than the continuous form.
They loved that restaurant.
This describes a state. It means loving is a stative verb, so it takes the past simple form rather than the continuous form.
I didn't know the answer at that time.
This describes a negative state. It means not knowing is expressed with the past simple, not the continuous form.
She didn't like the noise in the cafe.
This describes a negative state. It means not liking is expressed with the past simple, not the continuous form.
Did you know about the meeting yesterday?
This is a question about a state. We want to know if you had that piece of knowledge, using the past simple form.
Did he believe what she said?
This is a question about a state. We want to know if he had that belief, using the past simple form.
Why did she want to leave so early?
This asks for a reason behind a state. We want to know why this feeling existed, using the past simple form.
While I was cooking dinner, my sister was setting the table.
This describes two actions in progress at the same time. It means both activities were happening together.
While he was driving, his phone was ringing in his pocket.
This describes two actions in progress at the same time. It means the driving and the ringing were both happening together.
While we were hiking, the clouds were gathering above us.
This describes two actions in progress at the same time. It means the hiking and the cloud gathering were both happening together.
She was reading a book while her son was doing his homework.
This describes two actions in progress at the same time. It means both activities were happening together in the same room.
While they were eating breakfast, the news was playing on TV.
This describes two actions in progress at the same time. It means breakfast and the news broadcast were both happening together.
I was walking home when I bumped into an old friend.
This describes an action in progress interrupted by an event. It means the walking was already happening when the meeting occurred.
She was talking on the phone when the doorbell rang.
This describes an action in progress interrupted by an event. It means the phone call was already happening when the doorbell rang.
We were eating dinner when the lights suddenly went out.
This describes an action in progress interrupted by an event. It means dinner was already happening when the power failed.
He was jogging in the park when it began to rain heavily.
This describes an action in progress interrupted by an event. It means the jogging was already happening when the heavy rain started.
They were setting up the tent when the wind picked up.
This describes an action in progress interrupted by an event. It means the tent setup was already happening when the wind grew stronger.